Hey everybody! It is the Quarren Teachers, except today we have a special guest host. I'm Mrs. Morell.
I'm Mrs. Starchman.
Yeah, and Mrs. Starchman is here going to read a book to us today, and then she has a fun activity planned afterwards. So make sure you're listening. This is great.
All right, so I'm going to read Rosie Revere, Engineer. This is what I would be teaching my second graders. But with this, we have an app that I use called the Novel Effect, and it's a free app that your parents can download on their phones. And it has a lot of books that go with it. I'm going to play that today so you can see what it's like while I read. So, here we go. Rosie Revere, Engineer.
I love this.
This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lilager's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed, where they'd never be seen. When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pants. Okay. The uncle she loved most was zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head. From parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud, but Fred slapped his knee and chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed, and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. I love it, Fred hooted. Oh, truly I do. But Rosie knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf and after that day kept her dreams to herself. And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great Aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie tales of the things she'd done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile and she looked to the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams. That night, as Rosie laid wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept in her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, no, not I. But questions are tricky and some hold on tight, and this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone, then hauled her cheese copter out onto the lawn to give her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on a switch. The Hello Cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, and then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, oh no, never, not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin, or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear. and never will I be a great engineer. She turned round to leave, but then great Aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next. Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, perplexed. I failed, said dear Rosie. It's just made of trash. Didn't you see it? The cheese copter crashed. Yes, said her great aunt, it crashed, that is true. But first it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew. Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy and on to the next. She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rose tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 built gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. And that is the end of the story.
That is a great message and story, and I love the sound effects.
Yes, and so if your parents would like to get Novel Effect, it is free, and there's lots of great stories on there. So I'm sure you have some of those stories at home. But when you think about Rosie, she was laughed at. She came up with some crazy inventions, and she almost gave up if it wasn't for her great Aunt Rose, who, encouraged her, and then she went on to do great things. So with this book, usually in second grade, then since talking about Rosie and her great aunt wanting to fly, we go into learning about Amelia Earhart and the Wright brothers, and we learn about airplanes. So today, I am going to show you, because if we were in class, we would be making a paper airplane today. So all you need is a piece of paper, and you can make a paper airplane however you want. I know kids in my class can make them way better than me. So do you want me to do step by step?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so with this one, I would just take the top right corner and the top left corner, and I kind of just fold them in at the same time so they're even. Make sure there's a good crease there on both sides. So now I have, kind of looks like this. Yeah. And then I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to do the same thing with to make the wings. I'm going to fold it kind of like that. So now it looks like this. Then I'm literally just going to bring it up. And mine's not quite even, which shouldn't surprise any of my second graders, because I'm not super great at art projects, but that's okay. I'm not giving up. So now I have my paper airplane, and then what we would do is we would go out and everybody would have a chance to fly theirs, and then we would measure how far their plane went, and some of them are going to nosedive the very first time. And so then we talk about, oh my goodness, what can we do to change this? How could we make it better? How can we make it fly further? So maybe you need to, add some more folds to your wings. Maybe you need to add a paper clip or some weight so it doesn't nosedive. Maybe you need to practice with your wrist so, you don't just nosedive from the very beginning. So it's a great thing that you can do, especially outside right now while it's pretty.
It's beautiful, yes.
What if you don't have a ruler? What can you use? You can just measure with your feet. Just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's fun. And if you have a brother or sister or mom and dad, have an airplane contest against them and see who can go the furthest.
That's great.
And don't give up. So
yes, do not.
One of my favorite books. And then there's more books in this series too. So other kids in the class have books written about them. So I love this. I don't think I told the author. It's Rosie Revere Engineer by Andrea Beatty. So check it out.
Very cool.
And don't forget Novel Effect. You'll love it.
Novel Effect, don't give up, which was a great message from the story. So not only did Mrs. Starchman talk about a read aloud, math was in it with measuring. science is in it from making something. This is a great activity, guys. I love it. If second grade didn't do it already, I'd probably try to steal it from them.
And you don't have to do a paper airplane. I mean, she collected trash all the time.
It's
so
true. Just build
you
something,
can
right?
build anything. And maybe like let Mrs. Morel know what you're building
Sure.
so we can see the great inventions that you're coming up with.
Yeah, and this will be on our Facebook pages, and then so you can, your own class can watch you,
Yes.
and then my class definitely. This is a great idea for them. All right, God bless. Take care. We miss all of you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Miss you. Bye-bye.